When we talk of the Holocaust experience of the Jews in Nazi Germany, there is a great difference between what happened in Tibet and what happened in Nazi Germany. But there, unfortunately and very frighteningly, there are real similarities too. One just cannot make easy comparisons, but there are some points of references. When you think of Nazi Germany, all of us tend to think of the gas chambers, and the ovens. Then they say, in Chinese death camps or in Chinese Laogai camps, you didn't have that. But we have to think again. The Chinese system is much more simpler. It's more sophisticated. The Germans always tended to a little, I think, they overdid things. You don't need gas chambers to kill people. The Chinese system was much simpler. You just starved them. And this throughout Tibet, in China also. This was a real system of starving people systematically. It's not that there wasn't any food that people died. The system was to underfeed people, to make them work to a point where they died. And it's been recorded, one of the great books on the Chinese Laogai experiences by a half Chinese, half French guy. It's called Prisoner of Mao, by this person known as Jean Pascalini. And he is the kind of the Solzhenitsyn of the Chinese Laogai. And he tells you that the system was there to kill people, and kill people in the most simple of ways by starving them systematically over a period of time. And in the end, when they knew you were absolutely going to die, they put you in a special camp where basically all you did was crawl around or lie back. And it's really, for me, it's a really terrible thing that the world is ignoring now. After the Holocaust happened, the slogan throughout the world, and in the Jewish community too, but in civilized countries, the slogan was, never again, But it has happened in communist China, before the Cultural Revolution and during. It is happening again, but in a far more insidious way right now. The system that we have now in China is very sophisticated. They use public relations offices and firms and companies in the West to cover these up, to explain things away. But essentially what is happening in many places in Tibet, and even concentration camps and Laogai camps, re-education camps in China, not just Tibetans, but Chinese, Protestant Christians, people belonging to what they call underground churches. We have the members of the Falun Gong religious group. They are called cults, but they're just basically essentially an innocent religious group. We have Buddhist monks, Catholic priests, dissidents, labor union officials. Anyone who speaks up against the Communist Party is being put away in many of these camps, where now, as kind of an additional refinement to what they used to do, these days, many people are confined to what they call psychiatric evaluation hospitals. And in many Chinese cities, now you have government-run psychiatric units, where essentially, if you speak out against the system, you are deemed in many ways to be psychologically unfit. There's something wrong with you. And so they take you there for treatment. And there's a lot of literature that's been published by the World Psychiatric Association, also by Human Rights Watch, telling you what happens in these systems. Not only that you're incarcerated, but you are also, you're given, psychotropic drugs. They might even give you psychosurgery, including prefrontal lobotomies. Inside Tibet, it has happened. People have really, people with the known reputation of being activists, going to jail, coming out, being beaten, have finally been sent to these institutions. And when they've come out, all they do now is sit on the side of the sidewalk and they pee in their pants. And it's really scary for people to see that. This is what happens to you if you defy the Communist Party of China.
I think basically appeasement and appeasement policy in particular, appeasement in general and appeasement policy in particular, has always proved wrong. And we have seen in the history when the Britain and others tried to appease the Nazi Germany in the hope that they can take influence in the German policy, but they have proven wrong. And we have seen what was the result of this appeasement policy. And although it may not be correct to compare the Holocaust in all points with those what are happening in Tibet, in Eastern Turkestan, and to some extent also within China. But there are many similar features, and the Western governments are also trying to apply the appeasement policy towards China, although they know that the appeasement policy of Chamberlain and co. have proved catastrophic. And now they are again doing the same thing. Sometimes I feel that the responsible people in the government, they know completely well that appeasement or their appeasement policy towards China will not work, but they just use as a lip service. And I think to this, I think the policy of the government of Tibet in exile under the leadership of the Dalai Lama, the so-called the policy of the middle way policy, is giving some sort of excuse to the Western governments for not doing anything concrete to help the Tibetans solve their problem. Because after His Holiness made his middle way policy public in Strasbourg in 1988, there was a lot of lip sympathy towards the Dalai Lama, and his policy is very moderate, and it is exactly what is required at this critical juncture. Not only should the Tibetans try to get their own right, but we have also to look after the national interests of China. So I've got a feeling that the leaders of the Western country and also leaders of the Eastern country, they take this middle way policy of His Holiness as a very timely rein for doing nothing for Tibet.
Yes, I'm Dolkun Isa. I'm the Secretary General of the World Uyghur Congress. I'm the Uyghurs. Of course, I have been staying in Germany since 1996. Uyghur is one of the indigenous people in East Turkestan, as now is Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region by the Chinese official names. Eastern Turkestan has been military control by Communist China since 1949. Since 1999 is Uyghurs pressure is by the Chinese authority, Communist China, is Uyghurs daily life is very strong pressure by the Chinese authority. We have no religion freedom, we have no cultural freedom. You know, is Uyghurs' daily life is persecuted by the Chinese authority about the political, cultural, economic, social. Every right is still continue to be violent by the Chinese authority. So we know is Uyghurs is Chinese government is give a guarantee to the Uyghurs autonomy is 1955. But actually, it's this autonomy just on paper autonomy. Real Uyghur people never seen is real autonomy in Turkestan. This case, Uyghur people fighting freedom, fighting for the political future. But China always accused to the Uyghur democratic movement, freedom movement, accusation as terrorist activities. So China is campaign in Eastern Turkestan, arrested a lot of innocent people, political people, religious people. In outside also Chinese as label Uyghur people as terrorists, but of course international community never believes the Chinese accusations, but China still do something. So we want to get some international support to the Uyghurs. Of course, Uyghurs problem completely same as Tibet problem.